Hi, I'm Dolly Vasta, and welcome back to Dolly's World. How many of you out there have ever watched a circus parade and have seen someone ride an elephant and said, I wish I could do that? Wouldn't that be fun? Or when the parade disappears, you often think, I wonder what it would be like to join the circus or run away maybe? Well, you know, my guest today is an old friend of mine, a very good friend of mine too, who has just about done that. He has ridden an elephant, and although he hasn't quite run away, he has joined an awful lot of circuses, and he certainly has written about them all. And I think I've piqued your interest quite enough. Let's meet Ernie Albrecht. Ernie,
Hi.
It's so good to have you.
It's good to be here again.
Yeah, and boy, all those memories of circus. I mean, I'm almost as much of an addict, a circus addict, as you are.
I know you have ties to Sarasota, Florida.
Yeah, I lived with the circus for 6 months when I graduated from high school.
That's great.
Yeah, it was. It was a great experience.
And was it with the Walendas?
No, it was with a woman who was Queen of the High Wire at the time.
Oh.
And for the life of me,
Can't remember her name. I'll never forget what's her name.
or I guess I won't be working the high wire for a while.
Well, you are right now, Dolly.
I'm on a very thin one.
Yes.
Anyway, so tell us about the elephant ride, because I think that's wonderful. I can just see you.
Well, it was one year the circus train unloaded its wares way down at the end of 34th Street, around 12th Avenue, I think, and then the elephants walked up to Madison Square Garden on 34th Street, and they had some of the press people, and I was invited to ride an elephant, and I did. So I rode an elephant for about 6 blocks. It was quite an interesting experience because all those people down there say, hello up there, how is it?
I wish I was up on that
Yeah,
elephant.
and I'm trying to stay on, you know, and meanwhile I saw one of the reporters nearly falling off and so forth. So, and the one thing that I remember about it was how hard it was to get up on the elephant. They had the elephants sort of lie down, but it took 2 or 3 people pushing my rear end to get me over. And you know, you see the girls in the show, the elephant puts up its leg and they flop
Yeah,
over.
they flip
It ain't that easy in real life, let me tell you.
Did you get chafed? They say that you get terribly chafed.
Not in that short, but I remember another elephant. One year they took the elephants up 8th Avenue to Central Park, and the girls all had terry cloth towels under them to keep from being, because they have very bristly hair.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I can just see those little sequin, little sequin tights.
Getting torn
Oh, I
to
think I'll
shreds.
just stay on this elephant for a while.
Yeah, they don't stay on too long, actually,
Yeah.
come to think of it.
What interests you about this circus? So, Ernie, why this wonderful interest
I don't know.
you have?
Something must have happened when I was very young, because I can remember back in 1944, and I think I was 6 years old at the time. And in 1944, they had a terrible fire, the Ringling Brothers did, up in Hartford, Connecticut.
Yes.
And even at 6 years old, I was very interested in the photographs in the newspaper and was paying quite attention. So something had already connected. And I know I went to see, I think I saw my first circus when I was about 4 years old, way up in the top balcony of Madison Square Garden.
The little
But it happened, it connected, and so it's been ever since. And when I was adult, I sort of put the circus aside and worked in the theater for a number of years. And then when my theater career ended, I went back to my first love, the circus.
To the elephants.
That's right, yes.
Just goes to prove something, doesn't it? Well, you know, Joe and I for years had gone to the circus at Madison Square Garden, and I can remember I always had this mad crush on Gunter. Remember Gunter?
Oh, of course.
He was the lion, the cat. Worked with the cats, and he was the handsomest man, and he had a beautiful wife and a gorgeous little boy.
Sigrid, yes.
Yeah.
Well, the little boy grew up to be a trainer himself, Mark Oliver Gable.
Really?
And he was the star of Ringling Brothers for a number of years. years after Gunther died.
But we got there early, and for some reason, they let us go backstage. And we wandered around, and what you see there is the real circus, the circus I had remembered. And it's funny, the smell.
Oh, I remember that.
And the sights
in the old Madison
yes.
Square Garden, the animals are all downstairs, and there was this huge staircase.
Right.
You would turn the corner to go down that staircase,
wow.
and bam, it just hit you. And people say, "Oh, that's horrible." I thought that was the greatest perfume in the world.
I know, and I understand that. But here, this man who was usually in spangles and satin and very glamorous. And he was forking hay and cleaning up muck.
Oh, yeah, right.
And talking to his cats.
That's true of all.
And we sat there and very, very quietly, and we watched him, and I was absolutely mesmerized all over again. In fact, I didn't even want to leave and go down, to the seats.
Well, that's true of all the animal trainers. I mean, they really devote their lives to the animals.
Well, very often.
From morning to night. I remember after Gunther died, I did one issue of the magazine dedicated to Gunther, and I did a long interview with Kenneth Feld, who owned the circus, and he said he remembered one New Year's Eve where they were having a New Year's Eve celebration, and Gunther said, "Excuse me, I have to go tend to the animals," and he just left the celebration and made sure the animals were taken care of.
But they responded to him.
Oh yeah.
And that is the reason.
Well, the audiences responded to him too.
Oh, yes.
I think I said where that people used to say that it was his way with animals, but I really think it was his way with audiences. He really had charisma.
He did.
This enormous arena. I remember the first time I met him, I was surprised at how small he was, how short.
Yeah,
in the arena you think he's this
person.
giant.
That's right, because he's down there with all these huge cats, and the sense of authority that he gave off.
Yes, it was really magnificent. He was a great circus performer. Well,
listen, let's get on to your books.
Okay.
Now, you have just finished the third book.
Right.
What's the name of it?
I think it's going to be The Contemporary Circus, The Art of the Spectacular. And the first one, which you have here, is called The New American Circus, and it is sort of the history of how it developed and so forth. And the new book is really about the creative process, because, in the old days, the circus was put together this way. An act would show up, they would hand their music to the band leader, and they would have one run through, and then the next day they would open.
Right.
Well, that's not the case anymore. People like Cirque du Soleil they go 6 months to a year developing a new show. So that's what the book follows, this creative process. And it has one chapter devoted to directors, the various directors from various circuses and how they work. Another chapter on the designers, composers. And then I have case studies for about 4 or 5 different shows, how they were put together. And then some interviews with performers. And finally, on the training of the performers, because that's become a new thing. In the old days, again, unless you were born into it,
right,
you didn't join the circus. But now there have so many circus schools around the world that people who have something happen to them that they want to join the circus, it's possible now.
Do you feel then that there's been a resurgence of the circus with the American public, the European public?
Oh yeah, definitely. I think Cirque du Soleil has really revitalized America's interest in the circus, and that has, I think, influenced all of the circuses. The kinds of performances that they have, and also the audiences that they're drawing now. So yeah, I think the circus is a lot more popular now. It had gone through a kind of decline.
It did, and I think it was in our kids, my kids, your kids' generation to a point.
Yeah, that's right.
They had excitement with television and video games. What was a circus? If you went and you saw a lot of animals, and they kind of smell, don't get in their way. You know, they did not see the glamour end of it, or
No,
the
I don't think
spectacle
so.
that we
Right.
saw.
Well, I mean, I think circuses today still have that problem with kids, you know, and the various electronic games and so on and so forth. So they're trying to deal with that and bring the audience into it more. I preferred it when they kept it at a distance, when it was a little bit more, as you say, glamorous
And a show
and mysterious and magical.
Yes. But maybe a lot of stuff anymore is not magical. I think we're missing a lot
That's
of
true,
magic.
yes. I mean, all this so-called reality TV. I mean, don't we have enough reality that we
My
have to have
world.
reality?
I mean, that's what Dolly's world is about, is reality.
Right.
Oh, I want some magic.
Yes, right. I agree. And that's what the circus can bring.
Yeah. Well, I have seen acts. My son sent me down from Vermont because he saw the Montreal, the Cirque du Soleil, and he got the tape, and he sent me it down. And it's a whole different ball
Absolutely,
game.
yeah.
And it had a lot of narrative along with it into the training, because you don't always end up doing
That's right.
what you go into training
You get trained to
for.
do a lot of different
A lot
things.
of different things.
And then you're put into a show where you may be required to do different things altogether.
And they're just so unreal.
Yeah, that's
I mean,
part of...
you know, of course, half the time we were talking about it before, you know, my knees, if I get down, they don't want to get up again.
Right.
And I'm thinking, you know, of one time, all the splits that I did, but now I watch someone do it on television, and I just sit there and I groan.
Well,
Just
I
the
don't groan,
thought.
but I do feel
Well, you can
kind of
wince a
envy,
little.
I guess it is. You know, I thought, gee, I wish
Wince
I
a
could
little.
still do that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you just have to kind of say, been there, done that, and
That's
good luck.
right. That's right. I've done a lot of things.
Yes, you have. But they're unusual. They're putting combinations of things together in the acts that
Right.
were never thought of.
And they're using music a lot more,
Yes.
and the costumes, and it's much more theatrical.
And makeup,
And
much more.
yes,
Before
right.
it was really the clowns.
Yeah. And oddly enough, nowadays the clowns are sort of losing their makeup,
Yeah.
and the other characters have a lot more makeup. It's kind of
Yeah,
interesting.
you see very weird things.
Well, even that they're getting away from Cirque du Soleil. I mean, because they had one particular director who directed maybe their first 9 productions, and now they have different people. And the show that's coming into New York in April, called Corteo, is pretty much realistic. I mean, they wear makeup, but not as characters.
Not surreal.
No, it isn't
Yeah.
surreal, despite the fact that it's
Yeah.
the funeral of a clown.
Oh, really?
A clown imagines what his funeral is going to be like, and it's really a wonderful show. I loved it.
I just remember the clown, and I guess I'll never forget this, with the circle of light,
Oh yes, Emmett Kelly.
Emmett Kelly.
Right, he would sweep up the
He'd sweep and
spotlight.
sweep. Yes. And it would get tinier and
Right,
tinier.
and
Oh,
then-
it was that was such a magical moment.
It was, and I always thought, you know, when you first, in the old garden particularly, it was like a cathedral. You walked in, it was so quiet.
Yes.
And all this rigging and stuff, and then he would come out in the spotlight. It was
Yes.
really fabulous.
Oh, well, the good old days.
The
huh?
good old days.
The good old
yes.
days. Now, I have read that you also have a quarterly magazine called Spectacle
That's right. Well,
that you have put out.
After-
What is it? And with everything else that you do, why are you doing a magazine?
Well, after I wrote this book, I still had some things I wanted to say about the circus, and it was very difficult to find people who would publish it. So I said, well, I'll have to do it myself. So I started this magazine. It's a quarterly magazine. It comes out 4 times a year. I write about 80% of it, And in order to have the material to fill in, I do a lot of traveling. I go all over the world now.
Oh.
Yes, it's
My heart
terrible.
really
I
weeps
go to
for you.
Monte Carlo. I spend a week in Paris.
Poor thing.
One year, my wife and I went through all of Europe. We went to Budapest and the circuses there, and in Germany, and in Switzerland. Great circuses in Europe.
It's a really tough life.
It is, but somebody has to do it.
has
So
to do
I
the
decided
dirty
I might
work.
as well jump in.
Right,
There was nobody
right.
else to do it.
Actually, I have a copy of the magazine here, or a couple of them. This one, of course, is a group we
Well, I know
we
that
all know.
these are your friends, the Belendas. I've become
Actually, I
quite
don't
friendly
know
with.
them.
I've become
Actually, I
quite
don't
friendly
know
with them. They're a very interesting family, and the father of the group, Tino Belenda, is also something of. I guess you would call him an evangelist.
Really?
He delivers sermons from the high wire. He
Kind
goes
of a high
into
wire Billy Graham.
prisons. Yeah, that's right. High flying Billy Graham. And he goes into prisons.
Yeah.
Along with some other, he belongs to an organization, and there's sports figures and so forth. And they go into prisons and they try to redeem these people,
redeem or
recruit them for or whatever.
Oh,
yes,
that's something.
And he's written a book about his religious feelings and so forth. And
Well, you know, I guess when you work in all seriousness, as they do, and that is one dangerous act.
oh yeah, I mean,
this is unreal.
it is
There have been
really-
so many accidents over the years, and I don't know whether or not they work with a net yet.
No, they
but they
don't.
never did.
or any.
That I think you get to know
lunges.
God a little.
I think so.
You know?
Now, for instance, this girl at the top, who is called the top mounter, at one performance I saw her as she sits on the chair, and then sometimes
tilt
she
that
gets up on the chair.
Yeah.
And so I said to her afterwards, I said, what are you thinking about? I mean, what do you have to keep in mind as you're doing that? And she said, well, I just have to remember what I'm doing and how I'm doing it and so on and so forth. And you know what? I think I jinxed her because she couldn't do it for the next several performances. She
Really?
probably started thinking too much about it. You know, I think some things you can't
No, you can't.
intellectualize too much, otherwise you just sort of freeze up. I mean, it's hard for some people to verbalize the creative process. I mean, I interviewed a lot of people, maybe close to 100 people for the new book, and what each of the interviews was an attempt for them to talk about what it is they think they're doing in this creative process, and for some people it's very difficult.
Oh, just give me a pair of spangled tights and shove me out on the
and
stage.
kick me out there.
And I'm on.
Right.
But it's a whole interesting concept, though, and it's true. Even the New York stage has changed tremendously, I think, from the simple shows it used to be on.
Yeah, well, I don't see too many anymore. I used to be a theater critic for 25
first nighter
years.
you were, that's right.
And people say, do I miss it? And I can't say that I really do.
Why? You're in Paris. You shouldn't miss anything.
That's right, yes. And when I'm in Monte
Paris.
Carlo, I usually, there's one luncheon that we usually have with the royal family, which is very nice.
Oh, really?
Oh, yes, very nice.
Well, say hello the next time.
I certainly will.
See, Dolly says hi.
The last time
Tell
I
him to
was
come
to
over and
dinner,
I'll
a
interview
waiter
him.
spilled some orange juice or something on the prince. I thought, oh my God, off with his head. But all of them seem to survive. Yes.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
Good. You have really had a lot of fun with your life.
Well, that's it. I think I'm having more fun now than I ever have. Because I'm back with something that I really love. And the circus people are really kind, giving, open. They love having the attention, and they're very open to it. And
oh, they're very warm.
Yeah,
are
they
they
are.
Still elitist? When I was
No.
with them, there was like a pecking order.
yeah, it used to be like the equestrians were the top, and then the aerialists.
Aerialists
That
and-
doesn't
and-
exist anymore.
And the high wire. And
Except that the clowns are still at the bottom of the heap.
well, they're next to the jugglers. The jugglers were only one up from
Yeah,
the
I guess.
clowns.
But the clowns really still, clowns and then the showgirls, I guess, are at the bottom.
But even with the trains that toured,
Oh yeah, but everything at the dining tables and
that was all separate. And,
yeah, right.
And yet, as a group, they considered themselves a family. It's just that was a part of the family they didn't talk to.
That's right. Well, I mean, in the dining tent, they had a big partition between the working people and the performers. I mean, and the performers would get fined, really, if they talked to
Really? I didn't know that.
the working people. Yeah, they were not supposed to socialize at all.
Did you ever wish, when you were young, you could have, taken
Been
your
in the
little
circus.
gazinka and run away?
Well, yeah, I did, of course. But I never. There was nothing that I could do. Although I don't. Did you know that I rode a unicycle?
Yes, I did, because
my
we were in the same
father-
show when you wrote it.
Oh, that's right. So my father owned a
How
bicycle
quickly he
shop.
forgets.
Yeah, well, quickly. It only has taken him 60 years or so.
That's right.
But so that got me as close to it as I guess I would have come. I mean, I never learned how to stay in place, and if I could have learned that, then I could have learned all the other things.
Oh.
But I wanted to be John Ringling North, the man that I wrote.
Of course.
He's the one who created the circus. I mean, Ringling Brothers, And that would still be a sort of a secret ambition, is to stage a circus, to see what I could do with that.
Well, I have a picture on my bathroom wall, and I was going to try and bring it today, take it off, and it's a big one. And it was done back in, I guess, the 40s at one time. And it's the back profile of an elephant sitting, and a little girl.
Oh, I think I know that photo.
And she's got her arm around him.
Yes.
And under it is my dearest friend. And I fell in love with it when I saw it, and I bought it because it reminded me of my days there. And circus people are very funny about their animals. They will not put them down. And there was an elephant that had trampled someone. The elephant's name was Dolly. And she was very valuable to them.
Oh, sure.
And by court order, she was supposed to be put down, and they didn't. There was another elephant that was already on its way out.
Oh, so they
switched. They did the old switcheroo.
Yes.
And Dolly stayed for many, many, many more years with
Oh, that's
the
good to hear.
Yes.
There have probably been a lot of Dolly elephants, I bet.
Yeah.
Some people have done studies of, they have talk about obsessions. I know a man who has kept a history of every elephant that ever appeared in America, what circuses she was with, because they're mostly female, and what different circuses and when they died, and so on and so forth.
That is an obsession.
Yeah.
It really is. But I fell in love with this. It took me back many years, and so it's hanging on my bathroom wall.
Great. Well, I have a lot of circus art around my house, too.
Yeah. If you ever come, you're welcome to look at it. Anyway. So what else are you going to do now? You have been a professor of English at Middlesex County College. You were, what was it called? Artistic director of Plays in the Park. You've
Producing director.
I'm sorry. Oh God. Producing director of Plays in the Park. How many shows did you do there in all that time?
I don't know. I think it was close to 100.
100 shows.
Yeah. Well, there's another thing. People say, "Do you miss that?" And again, I can't really say that I do. Talk about burnout, that was
it.
Yeah. I think I not only burned myself out, but a good part of my family as well.
Yeah, it's very tough. No one realizes how tough it is, because there's so much of you that goes into every production, and you had charge of everything down there, and you also have to deal with the political end of that.
And the public.
And the public.
There were at least 100 people involved in every show, so and every one of them had a personality.
That's true.
Yes.
That's true. You also did. You did some shows for clubs.
Right.
I know. I was.
And I
was
worked
with
down
you
in
with one.
Beach Haven and at Club Benet.
Right.
Good old Club
Good
Benet.
old club. You know, it was a
Does that still exist?
No. No. And I think the brother, the son, is alive.
Oh, is he?
But the one that kept feeding us, the father.
Oh, I know that he had died.
Yeah. But I don't think many people know that Johnny Travolta really and truly started with us. And you know what?
That's right.
He never gives you credit for it.
That's right. And
Every time
he wasn't, you know, because they
right.
served liquor at Club Benet, he had to be 17, and I don't think he was. He lied about, or maybe he was 18, but he lied about that. But he was one of the newsboys in our production of Gypsy, in which you were also a part.
Yeah,
and his
Rick.
sister was in it too.
Right, and Rick. My Rick was in it.
Right.
And none of them were 18, I don't think.
Probably not.
I don't think so.
And then there's David Copperfield. You know, he was in one of the earliest shows that I did in
Right.
Plays in the Park.
Well, I hope someday that Johnny gives you credit.
Well, you know.
You know.
I did meet David Copperfield a few years back.
And he recognized you?
Oh, yes. And he remembered a story that I always tell about him, which I don't think I'll tell now. But at any rate, so he had dragged me over to his friends to say, I want you to meet the man who is responsible for my whole career, because he told me. Now, let me think. What did he say I told him?
Well, I'm getting a signal, so hurry up.
Okay, I think I told him that he was a jerk or something like that. And so to prove me wrong, he has become the enormous star that he is now.
Oh.
So he had to bring me to his friends to introduce him.
Yeah. Well, we've all made errors from time to time.
I don't know.
You know, maybe he was then, and that turned him around.
That's right.
Who
That's
knows?
right.
Well, Ernie, I'm so happy you came today. I have had a ball. This 28
always
minutes,
fun.
they've been sending me signals, and the time has just flown by.
Right.
You know, we could go on for 2 more.
Absolutely.
And absolutely bore everyone else
Well, I don't hope not.
No, of course not. You never. But I just wish you so many more wonderful years
thank
with
you.
the circus. I really
Thank
do.
you. Yeah, I hope I can keep traveling. That would be the great part.
Keep on traveling.
Keep on trucking.
Get your Kazinka and go. And
Thanks.
to all of you out there, I hope you had as much fun as we did learning a little bit more about the circus. It was wonderful. If you get a chance to get over to see one, do. You won't regret it. I'll see you all next month. In the meantime, take care.